So I'm thrilled to do it. It's our first time around. I've had opportunities in the past, but the time seemed right. And I just kept waiting for our diehard fans to get tired of hearing wrestling stories, but we don't, right?
No, we're not going to get tired. We're insatiable for it. We can't get enough. And prime example, as you and I are recording this just last night, I saw your live show. It was my 6th time seeing the show. I think it's better than ever. I told you that after the show, and you're still making towns, man. Tell everybody where they can keep up with you and see what you're doing next.
You see, you might have caught me. I've got this telltale sign that I'm nervous, which is when I blink kind of like in a strange way. It's almost like a facial tic brought on by weariness. So last night on stage, for example, if you saw me go into the face like I was rubbing my eyes, I was actually blinking because I hadn't slept the night before.
Wow.
And I'd say if you go back and you were to look at footage of every single promo I've ever cut in the 4 or 5 seconds before that promo begins, I'm doing this strange blinking thing. So forgive me if I blink a little bit, but this is a new terrain for me.
Of course.
And we will feel our way through it, hopefully become a beloved part of people's weekly schedule. But when it comes to my shows, they can go to my website, realmickfoley.com, and go to events. And man, we're really running hard through the middle of June and then taking a few months off. But you can tell that I love doing the shows. So Conrad, there was this, back when I was doing the shows with Bruce, right?
Yeah.
So Bruce and I would be terrified because we were outside our comfort zone.
Right.
I haven't had a drink before a show in years, but when Bruce and I were doing these things, here we are. We both had experience in front of 15, 17,000 people. Bruce had been in front of WrestleMania stadium. I believe they'd done stadiums by that point.
Yeah.
And I remember we got 17 people in Worcester, Massachusetts. And here Bruce and I were practically holding on to each other like a mama koala and her little baby. Because we're just scared. We're out of our comfort zone. So I would have 1 or 2 drinks and go on. And so Bruce and I did a bunch of these shows. The guy who booked us he's no longer, don't want to denigrate him because he's not here anymore. But they booked it as like total, not insane, but it was like total extreme comedy. And that's not what I do. And Bruce is a storyteller like me. We're not coming out there and do wacky jokes and, sight gags. So it wasn't really a great fit, but it was that idea that you're outside the comfort zone, but you're working on something and you're trying in a different way to put smiles on faces. So now fast forward several months, Bruce and I we're at the Hilton in Las Vegas. And it's one of the 2 or 3 biggest crowds we did of a dozen or shows. We got about 300 people, but we're in the Vegas Hilton where Elvis used to play. That's where he did his residency. And they've decided that the VIPs, there's like 100 VIPs, they're going to be to the side of the stage. So now we're down to 200 in a 3,500 seat theater. And they're scattered around. Yeah. So I guess it gave the woman who reviewed the show the idea that nobody was there. And she hit me with this is one of the lines that just, it stung. It said, the man who used to play to tens of thousands now plays to tens of tens. And it was like, well, first of all, that is true. But it wasn't true that night. Technically, there was
hundreds.
Hundreds. And I've since come to realize, that doesn't matter. Last night, I told a little story about my son Huey being my elf on Christmas Eve, and how when we drove away from the house, I said, "Man, I feel like I've just finished a big pay-per-view match." And he said, "Dad, there was only 3 people there, just a dad and 2 sons." I said, "It doesn't matter, buddy. It's about creating that moment that you hope they won't forget." So I try not, I try not to make my show any deeper. It's supposed to be an escape for people.
It is.
Relive stories, but that one message that I will hit on is don't let other people, decide for you what being a success is. So even on nights when there are tens of tens, and those do happen, I try to bring the A game. And I tell people, I say, man, there are certain nights when you get that reaction and you're in front of, whether it's 70 people or 100, we had about 170. It was, almost packed there last night. Good for, was it Tuesday night or Wednesday night?
It was Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah, I came out of that with that post-show buzz. Yeah. I remember seeing Jewel perform, and I had quoted Jewel's song "Hands." I actually talked about it last night, about how I used to wear the bracelet before it broke that said "Only Kindness Matters," which is a Jewel show. And so I remember her saying, "Hey, dude, we should meet." And so I say, "Hey, this might sound strange, but I'm coming from an event. I might be Santa Claus." And my wife goes, "Oh, that's the last time she'll ever talk to you." And then Jewel responds with a DM that's like, "Oh, like, I think I adore you." Like, she loved that stuff, or the writing the letter to her son, Santa. And so I just want to remark on the fact that when the next time I came to see, it was that night, you do the customary, "Well, nice to meet you." And
Sure.
after 5 minutes, you don't want to tell, you kind of know when your time is done. And every time I kept excusing ourselves, my daughter, Noelle, my wife, she go, no, sit down. So, she basically spent the entire hour with the Foley family, and we walk away thinking, we've got a new friend in Jewel.
Right.
The next time I saw her on the road, is before I bequeathed to her my album collection. So
cool.
Jewel has Jewel and Alicia Warrington, who is Alicia Taylor on NXT. They own the Foley album collection, the Foley vinyl collection, right? What a weird world it is, right? Jewel and Alicia Taylor have the Foley albums. But when I came back to see Jewel after the show, she had that post-show glow.
Wow.
It was really cool to be part of that. So you see, after all these years, when someone loves performing, they've got that glow about them. And I had that last night. You saw me afterwards, right?
Yeah, you were on cloud nine.
I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah.
And so going back to what the woman said about tens of tens, here's an interesting thing. We might be able to do this on a future show. And I know people tuning in, like, so Foley's talking about Jewel and Santa Claus. We want you to be thrown off the top of that cell. We like that guy. And we'll get to that guy. But when I did my Santa memoir, right?
Yeah.
Knowing full well that this is a very limited audience, and I hedged my bets when I vowed I'm going to donate all of the money to, children's or charitable organizations that deal with Christmas. Whether it's Santa's Elves Incorporated and out of Santa Claus, Indiana, which write letters to children.
That's awesome.
And also, and then a few charities that help the less fortunate during the holidays, because that's important. But I also realized it's not like I'm hedging my bets. This is not going to be the big seller where I go, "Oh my goodness, what did I do? Why did I do that?" That's a lot of money to be given away. So I know it's a limited audience. When I did the audio, I broke down when I read the last page, where I was talking about visiting a boy at his home, a boy who had cancer. He was so exhausted when I saw him in the hospital a couple days before Christmas. I thought, poor kid's not going to remember anything about this visit. So I said to his mom, I said, would he like a visit, on Christmas Eve? Problem was, Christmas Eve rolls around, Christmas Day rolls around, and there's no answer from the family. So I call the hospital. I speak to the head of a child life department, and she says, "Well, he family doesn't mind if I say his name. Brandon just went home late on Christmas Eve." I said, "Well, see if he'd like a visit on Christmas Day." And the mom gets back to her. She relays the message. "Well, they would love it, but it's Christmas Day." And this is where I want people. I know I jump around a little bit. Stephanie McMahon wrote in the foreword to that book, and she wrote a great foreword. She said, "I've known Mick Foley for over 20 years, and all that time he hasn't changed." She used like 3 words of high praise for me, and she said, "And somehow simultaneously naive, like all at the same time." And then she said, "And if you pushed my hand, I'd say a little strange." And I was so glad that she said that, because wrestling's a home for outcasts, right?
Of course.
Especially the stuff I did as Mankind that really connected.
Yeah.
I was just trying to keep my head above water in the Attitude Era. Like, I didn't know when I decided to make Mankind a little kinder and gentler,
right,
that I was connecting with people that didn't feel like they had a place. And so if I can spread a message, it's embrace the things that make you strange.
Right.
Don't shy away from them. I was so glad Stephanie wrote that, because I said to my wife, I said, every positive thing that's ever happened to me has come about because of behavior that could be categorized as strange.
Wow.
So when I respond to this, the child life person, and I say, tell that family there's no place I'd rather be on Christmas Day than at their home with their child. That sounds like the words of a crazy man, right?
Right.
So when I said that, I remember there was a little girl named Ursula, and she was born, she loved Santa. I even did a bonus chapter in the paperback called The Girl Who Loved Santa Claus. She loved Santa to the point where I would write a letter and like send her a gift for halfway to Christmas. And then I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart, but we all still love the acknowledgement.
Sure.
And after 5 days, there's no acknowledgement of the gift. So I said, how does Ursula enjoy a gift? And the mom writes back, we don't know. She won't open it. She carries it everywhere with her.
Wow.
So it brought her so much happiness just to have it.
Yeah.
And that she wouldn't open it. So this girl just positively loved Santa.
Wow.
And so when I did the same thing when I met the mom, and I saw how taken the little girl, who wasn't supposed to talk, who the parents were told should live out her days in a home because her disabilities are so severe, or challenges, I think we call them these days, so severe. So when I committed to doing a visit on Christmas Eve, she said, okay, I'm sure it'll be a quick visit. I know you have to be with your family. And I said, the visit may be 5 minutes. It may be an hour. It will be however long it needs to be the best visit I can give to your child.
Yeah.
And so my wife looks and goes, you sound like a crazy man. And I'm like, yeah, I do, and if you take it the wrong way, it sounds like there's something wrong. But going back to the behavior is like, well, everything I've ever done that has meant something has come about because of behavior that could be labeled strange. So just fast forward, going back to the chapter about the boy in the house, I get there, it's about 6 p.m. And I said in the book, I think I referred in the Have a Nice Day to having a list of goals that I wrote down, and how as time went on, I was able to check off almost all those goals. Main event, Madison Square Garden, headline a pay-per-view that does X number of buys. I know it was 300,000, whatever, like check, 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 check. And I also had a list of the greatest things I thought I'd ever accomplished. So there was Beach Blast 92, the match with Shawn Michaels in 96, the sit-down interview from April 97 with JR. And I said, if I can ever find that list, at the bottom, I'm going to put visit to Brandon's house, because I was in the zone that night, right? Like one of the best performances I ever did. And there's only 5 people there. All 3 women have tears streaming down their cheeks, and there's 6 people, Brandon and his sister and the dad. And I was just on top of the world that night. So when I go to read the final page, I talk about the goals. And I also talk about being at WrestleMania in Dallas in 2016, and how first of all, I should have gone first. Shawn should have gone second, right? That should have been the hierarchy. Why they had Shawn come out I don't know. Steve rightfully comes out last. And I know as soon as that glass breaks, not a soul in the place is going to be looking at me, right? Honestly. And last night I talked about just seeing faces and being able to connect. But now I got the luxury of time where I can look around 101,000 people, even if it was I don't know. I've heard it was slightly exaggerated. There were a lot of people there, a lot of folks there. You have a great way of putting it. And I just looked around and I thought, I've never been in front of a crowd like this before. I will never be in front of a crowd like this again. I'm going to take it all in.
Good.
I also had the luxury of knowing I was on the no-touch list. Sheamus had firmly instructed me to hit me as hard as I could, fella, and then made it clear that he would be angry with me if I didn't, just by looking at me. He goes, hard as you can. I said, Sheamus, I don't think I need to do that to make it look good. He goes, as hard as you can, fella. I was like, hey, man, I've got instructions. So now I was able to just enjoy that moment because I don't have to worry about making my stuff look good.
Sure.
By virtue of the fact that I'm going to hit him as hard as I can repeatedly, it's going to look pretty good. And I also referred back to the goal I had of selling out Madison Square Garden and how it more than lived up to my expectations. But then I said, But if you ask me, was it better than being in that kid's house, that child's house,
Wow.
in front of 5 people? And that's when I broke down. I was like, I can't tell you that it was. So that's one thing. If you're listening and you're in a car, wherever you happen to might be, and it feels like life's got you down a little bit, just remember, you get to define what being a success is. And for me, like, everyone's a success if they just make the world a slightly better place for all mankind. All right, through with my lecture. You're probably shaking your head going, oh,
No, we could roll the credits right now. I mean, you are the most genuine person in wrestling, the most beloved person in wrestling, and I can't believe I get to sit here and do this with you. It's an honor.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, wait a second, Conrad does a podcast with DDP, and I'm apologizing for saying something that might be construed as inspirational. Yeah. So yeah, I like I said, when I come to the shows, that's not the goal. The goal is to entertain and make people forget about the real world out there, and that's what I hope we're doing in a sense.
Absolutely, we are.
Why you've had this great success. So I'm glad to be part of the team.